talk show host.
Then they think they're
Oh my god,
mentally
this
crazy.
is so much. This is craziness.
Alright, go.
This is so much better.
Good morning. Today's show is going to narrow in on blindness and its effect on the educational system. We are lucky enough to have two special guests on today's show. Dr. Brown, who specializes in the study of low vision and blindness, and Dr. Cunningham, who is a blindness specialist. Welcome. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Thank you for having me. I graduated from the College of New Jersey as a special education teacher with certification as a teacher of the blind and visually impaired. I went on to get my doctorate in blindness and its impact on individuals. I'm currently working at the school district in my town where I construct the curriculum for both the students with low vision in the public schools as well as a school for the blind nearby.
Thank you very much. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about blindness?
Of course. So blindness can appear due to many different factors. Among them are eye diseases, eye trauma, cataracts, glaucoma, and genetics. The legal definition of blindness is when central vision has degraded to 20/200. In the United States, there are currently about 100,000 children and 1.1 million people total who are legally blind.
I see you brought a special guest with you today. Would you mind introducing him?
Sure, this is Dr. Cunningham, our blindness specialist.
Hi, thanks for having me. So first I would like to talk about signs of blindness in newborns. The important thing to realize is that newborns' eyes are about 75% developed at birth. With it being said, it can be difficult to tell if a newborn is born blind. It's about looking at the little things about the baby, such as squinting, or if the child turns their head off and away from lighting, or any spots that can be seen in the eyes of the child. When understanding this, is important to realize the development stages. For example, focus is not unreliable because infants are not able to focus on anything for too long as it is. It isn't until about 3 months where the baby should start being able to follow objects with their eyes. This is when, if there is a vision issue, it becomes more noticeable.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Would you mind talking about blindness in the classroom setting?
Sure, in the regular classrooms, children who are blind have the same academic goals as sighted children. There are modifications made for them in the classroom settings, like adaptive tools and materials in tactile or in large forms. Generally, children who are blind and have no other major disabilities that require special education services. A big problem that students who are blind face a lack of social interaction between them and their sighted peers. For sighted students, there are more social opportunities in the real-world experiences.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Dr. Cunningham. Dr. Brown, as an educator of students who are blind or visually impaired, would you mind talking more about the options for schooling and what the classroom is like for students who are blind? Could you talk more about the options for overall schooling?
Sure. So students who are blind generally need to learn more than sighted students, as they need to get the hang of using technology and computer equipment to accommodate their needs. Students who are blind have a different experience with literacy as well, and usually need to learn Braille in order to be able to read. Braille is a system of raised dots on paper that can be read with one's fingertips. The different combinations of dots each have a different meaning and provide a way for people who are blind or visually impaired to read and write.
So would you say it's better for students who are blind to be in inclusive classrooms or in separate classrooms?
That's a really good question, and there's a lot of debate surrounding the topic. I personally think that whatever the student is more comfortable with is what should be implemented. In special education classrooms that include students with ranging disabilities, children who are blind require additional modifications to curriculum, in-class supports, and adapted materials.
Also, special education classrooms are generally smaller that focus more on the individual. A downside is that academic standards could be lower. Special education classrooms with only students who are blind or visually impaired feature a completely individual curriculum that meets the students' needs. Usually, these schools are in cities where the population is higher. The goal of these classrooms is to focus more on develop more than academic goals.
One important thing to note is that it is quite difficult to get a teacher of the blind because most are certified for general special education, not necessarily blindness.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the schooling for the blind?
One example of a school for the blind is the Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind is located in St. Augustine, Florida. It's from pre-K through 12th grade in the School for the Blind. The students have access to specialized teachers and materials. Since the majority of the students have visual impairments, their academic opportunities may not be the same standards as public schools, but this kind of school provides great social opportunities for the students.
That being said, schools for the blind end up limiting students' contact and experience with the sighted world. Students in schools for the blind are isolated from this kind of real-world exposure and often have to live away from home to attend school. After 12th grade, the students are essentially on their own. After having been in a school for the blind for so long, it might be even more difficult for these students to pursue higher education.
In terms of blindness as a disability, how can people who are blind or visually impaired thrive in everyday life?
People with blindness actually have extraordinary non-visual senses. Their senses of touch is much greater than the sighted people because they can't rely on their sense of sight. Their other sense of enhanced, essentially, people who are blind make up for their lack of visual sight by using other senses to see the world.
Yes, and neuroimaging studies have been done to back this up. The part of the brain that is devoted to sight is essentially rewired to process sound and touch as visual information.
If you could you like to give us some more information on day-to-day life?
Sure. In terms of jobs, people who are blind or have visual impairments can become farmers, lawyers, factory workers, nurses, restaurant managers, teachers, professors, scientists, and just about anything else. If you're qualified and the employer knows that you can do your job, you're not limited at all.
Thank you both very much. This has been very informative. I actually think we're running out of time right now, but I want to thank you both for coming here. And is there anything else that you think our audience should keep in mind when thinking about blindness as a disability?
It's important to understand that blindness doesn't have to be a disabling disability. With the proper environment and resources, people who are blind are able to live independent, autonomous, and fulfilling lives.
And there you have it. Thank you all for being here and thank you for coming.
Okay.